who's actually going to get the most out of the Fujifilm X-T200, and who should walk away before they spend a weekend's rent on a kit they'll barely use. Is this the sweet spot for a budding content creator who needs a camera that feels solid but won't intimidate them with a wall of menus? Or is it just a pretty piece of tech that looks good on Instagram while draining a battery faster than a smartphone? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Those are the questions that keep most shoppers up at night when a camera promise great for beginners meets a price tag that's not exactly cheap. When I started looking at entry-level mirrorless options, the first thing I asked myself was, will I actually use the autofocus in everyday shooting, or will I spend half an hour hunting for focus in low light? The X-T200 advertises on-sensor phase detect pixels, which, in plain English, means the camera can lock onto a subject quickly without the lag you sometimes see on older models. In my own test runs at a dimly lit coffee shop, the AF caught a moving barista's hands as they poured latte art and kept the shot sharp, even when I moved a foot away. That confidence is a real game changer for anyone who isn't ready to manually focus every shot. But confidence in focus is only one side of the equation. Low light performance is another, and this is where the X-T200 shows both its strengths and its limits. The sensor is a 24-megapixel APS-C, which gives a decent amount of light gathering ability, but the camera's ISO ceiling sits around 12,800. In practice, I found that at a family dinner where the only light came from a candle and a dim chandelier, the images stayed clean up to about ISO 3,200. Push it higher and you start to see noticeable grain, especially in the shadow areas. If you're planning to shoot concerts or nighttime street scenes regularly, you might feel the need to step up to a camera with a larger sensor or better high ISO handling. Stabilization is another practical concern. The X-T200 relies on digital image stabilization rather than a dedicated sensor shift system. For handheld video, the new HDR video mode does a decent job smoothing out minor shakes, which is useful if you're vlogging from a coffee shop or walking down a city street. However, when I tried to capture a smooth walk-and-talk segment while holding the kit at arm's length, the footage still jittered enough that I needed to add a small gimbal in post-production. For photographers, the lack of in-body stabilization means you'll need a lens with optical stabilization for the cleanest stills when shooting at slower shutter speeds. Speaking of lenses, the X-T200 comes with the XC1545mm kit lens. It's a versatile standard zoom that covers wide-angle to short telephoto, making it a good starter lens for everyday snaps. The optical quality is respectable, delivering the signature Fujifilm color rendition that many photographers love, those rich, film-like tones you see in Instagram feeds. However, the kit lens isn't the fastest. Its maximum aperture is f/3.55.6, which means in low-light situations you'll either have to raise the ISO or open up the aperture by switching to a faster prime. The good news is that Fujifilm's lens ecosystem is one of its biggest assets. If you discover you need more reach or a brighter lens, there are plenty of XF and XC lenses that attach directly to the X-T200's mount, and they're generally lighter and smaller than many DSLR equivalents. Menu navigation often trips up newcomers, and Fujifilm is notorious for a hybrid approach that blends classic analog dials with a touch screen. The X-T200 leans heavily on the 3.5-inch vari-angle LCD, which feels like a tablet in your hands. Most settings you'll need for everyday shooting, ISO, exposure compensation, white balance, are just a tap away. The analog dials for shutter speed and exposure compensation add a tactile feel that many beginners appreciate because it encourages you to think about your settings rather than just point and shoot. That said, the menu system itself can be a little deep. Digging into custom functions means scrolling through several layers, and there's no quick access favorites screen. If you're the type who wants to set up a custom workflow and jump straight into a specific picture profile, you'll spend a few minutes getting the menu just right. Battery life is another practical point that often gets glossed over in marketing copy. The X-T200 uses a standard NPW126 battery, which under real-world mixed use, still photos, occasional video, and reviewing shots on the LCD, gives you roughly 350 shots per charge. That's enough for a weekend outing, but if you're planning a full day of shooting events or a travel vlog where you'll be recording video for hours, you'll want a spare battery or a power bank. The downside is that the battery compartment sits on the side, making it a bit awkward to swap out while the camera is mounted on a small tripod. Now, who should actually buy this kit? If you're a hobbyist who